Hi, thank you for having me. My name is Dr. Andrea Yoder Clark, and I am a professor of business analytics at University of San Diego. I'm excited to be here today to talk to you guys about data for social good. So I'm going to start my presentation by sharing my screen. Okay, so I'm excited to talk to you guys today about data for social good. Through this presentation, we are going to talk a little bit about what data for social good means and what some example projects that we've done at University of San Diego in this capacity. So as I go through here, okay. So when we're talking about data for social good, one of the things that I think is most important to think through is what does this actually mean in practice in the world? And who does data for social good out in the community? So, data for social good seems like it could potentially be primarily organizations that are nonprofit oriented only. But actually, private companies can be doing data for social good projects as well. So, when we're talking about data for social good, some of the examples that I commonly point to would be an organization called DataKind. So, DataKind is one of the first organizations to grow in this space. They started a nonprofit organization that actually works with other nonprofits to do very large data science oriented projects for them, given that many nonprofit organizations typically can't pay for more advanced analytics. Some other examples would be organizations like Data for Democracy and Driven Data. A lot of these organizations now have popped up in social sector to bring the lens of data science to social problems. But you also have organizations like Intuit and Teradata who are really pushing the boundaries of using data science to create data driven products in the world that have a social purpose. One of the examples that I like to talk a lot about is Intuit's Together We Prosper program, where they have created data science models to explore demographics that may be less likely to save money. And so when you do your taxes through their TurboTax system, if you qualify for this program, they would match your they would donate matching funds if you put your tax return into a savings account, which is a really cool program. And then Teradata is a really large data focused organization that has its own platform for enterprise level organizations. But one of the things that they do moves into this realm of what we call data philanthropy, where they encourage a lot of their employees to go and sit on boards of social sector organizations and contribute their data analytics skills pro bono for the purposes of expanding the analytics ability in the social sector. And then finally, the last example is Tableau Public. And I'm sure we've all heard about Tableau if we're in the data field. And Tableau Public is their publicly available free platform where folks can um, do what we call citizen data science projects. So people that are interested in understanding a social issue can download publicly available data, visualize it, and help us understand some of the more interesting social challenges that are happening and post it on Tableau Public for free and public access for folks, which is really fun. So, what are the driving principles when we talk about data for social good? What do we mean? So data driven decision making is the first component. I'm sure, most organizations now are trying to move towards a data driven decision making perspective where data itself is driving business decisions. However, the social sector tends to be a little slower in that capacity. So having that kind of a focus is really important. So stakeholder engagement is another one. And this one is actually really unique to the social sector. Um, when we think about working with nonprofit or social sector organizations, the people that they impact are at the center of their mission and their journey. And so in this space, we actually need to be thinking about who is going to be impacted by the data analytics that we do, and how can their voice be brought into the conversations early when we're talking about model building, and even um, the analytics approach that we are going to take throughout the project. Many of the results that we're going to be looking for are determined by the models we choose. And so understanding what the end goal needs to be from the perspective of the people that are served by the organization is essential to considering when we're in the model building phase. I really loved Kirk's emphasis in his last talk around, you know, I think he called it the minimum lovable product instead of the minimal viable product. But I think being iterative is something that is super important across industries. And, as you are building analytics approaches and projects, having that iterative approach, I like to reference lean startup methodology, which goes back to that minimum viable product model, in order to get to functional, high quality results for the organization. So, the idea of building quickly and iterating often is really important in our space as well. And then next, open source platforms, right? So one of the great things about data science today is that many of the tools that we have are publicly available at no cost. So that really, it creates a whole level of accessibility for social sector organizations that tend to have less funds that they can contribute towards these projects. So just the fact that Python and R platforms that you can access at very low cost and or are free, as well as Tableau, allows us to be able to do really innovative things in this space that we may not be able to do were there large price points attached to the tools necessary to do data science. And then finally, the other thing that I think is really unique to the social sector is this idea of informing your analytics process from a user-centered design perspective. So one of the things I wanted to talk about there is that if you've not heard of an organization called IDEO, they originated this idea of user-centered design. And the understanding behind this is that you're using your design, whether it be model design from an analytics standpoint or program design that's informed by the results of your analytics, but you're informing all of that from the perspective of the community that's served. And you're using this design process to drive connection, which is really an interesting and innovative idea. All right. So as we go on to the next slide here. Sorry, my computer is being slow to respond. Let's see if we can get it. Now we went too many slides ahead. Okay, there. So if you're interested in data for social good, just as something that you want to participate in as a auxiliary component to your existing career, there's lots of opportunities to do this in your community. We mentioned the Teradata Cares program and this concept of data philanthropy. So again, sitting on a board and offering your data science analytics skills is a huge asset to these organizations that typically don't have budget for more expansive analytics projects. Some other examples that are really fun are hackathons. So Teradata has also put on a regular hackathon where they partner with a social sector organization, analyze their data, and then have folks from internal teams in their organization approach the analysis in different ways and compete for the most efficient and high quality final product, which is really fun. We did a project like this actually at USD where we partnered with Biocom, which is our leading agency in the not social sector, in the health sector in San Diego. And we partnered with the San Diego County Office of Health and we explored the question around looking at the San Diego County's data, looking at what are the primary indicators of disease in our community. And then we set up different teams to come in and compete for the analysis. And what was really exciting with that was that we ended up having really high quality results for the County of San Diego that they could apply to public health initiatives in our community. But we also provided the prizes that the teams were competing for were actually internships with data science teams in data science focused organizations in our communities. So we had students compete in the hackathon, and then the prize was an internship. Many of those students actually ended up going on to getting full-time careers in those organizations. So there was very much a win-win effect from that experience, which was really fun. And then finally, if you're just curious and you want to practice your data science skills, think about becoming a citizen data scientist and engaging with Tableau Public. Build your Python and Tableau skills, create a data set, upload it to Tableau, visualize it, and help the community think through some interesting questions that way. So one of the key points that I want to mention today around data for social good is that data for social good is not program evaluation. And historically in the nonprofit sector, most organizations have approached the process of analytics from this perspective of thinking about, creating a very structured academic study. And while that has its place, and there's definitely many research questions that are well suited towards that, that is not data science. And data science itself can lend a lot of really interesting types of analysis and findings, and can actually reveal a lot more information in one analytics project than a more traditional research science approach. So I'm going to go through some examples of some interesting data science projects that we have done in the data for social good realm that have actually resulted in publications. So one of them was a project where we used machine learning so we applied machine learning to a publicly available data set around education data. And the question that we asked was, if I was the superintendent of a school district in California, how would what can I do to increase AP exam test scores? And what we did was we actually set this up as a hackathon as well in a different setting, also with Biocom actually. And we had teams compete to analyze the publicly available data that we utilize from the State Department of Education in California's website. And what the winning team went through a really typical data science approach that resulted in some really interesting findings that were able to be applied more broadly in the county to help increase access to high quality AP exam experiences for our students, and also resulted in a publication in the International Journal for Machine Learning, which was great. So the process that we went through, we talked about program evaluation being more traditional research-oriented experience where you're setting up like an experiment and you're collecting the data, you're controlling for specific variables so that they're not impacting the output that you're trying to determine with the experiment. The difference in a data science approach is that we can go into an existing data set, use exploratory analysis, data mining strategies, then go in, look at the relationships between variables using correlations, then go up to maybe looking at a multiple regression to understand rankings across variables if we're looking at the coefficients there and comparing them against each other. And then the winning team actually used cluster analysis to co-locate geography and poverty variables. If you've done any kind of work in education, you know that geography and educational success are really correlated and has a lot to do with the overall income of that particular community. And so what the final component of the analysis for the winning team, they used a boosted decision tree model to generate predictive features. And what was interesting here is that we found, so this is their output that you can see. There were 695 schools in this publicly available data set. What it was, mean income level in that zip code was highly related to the AP pass rate. And as you can see, if the income level was higher, the AP pass rate was over 50%. We're talking about median income levels above 100,000 to get there. And then typically, if the median income level was lower than 100,000, the mean AP pass rate was below 50% in that community. So what we then, this is their output from their correlation and their linear regression equation. So in this example, what they found was that third grade math scores on the standardized tests, as well as whether or not you were an English language learner or you qualified for free and reduced price meals, those combination of factors was the best predictor for passing your high school AP exams. So one of the great benefits from looking at this historical data set in this way is that we realize that this is a systemic long-term challenge that needs to be approached in a long-term way at the level of a district, right? You can't leave that up to an individual school, because if we're talking about third grade math scores impacting your ability to become, to be able to pass your AP exams in high school, this has to be something where districts are working together across schools to make this accessible to our students. Another example before we go into the question and answer time is another study that I did for a client of mine in my consulting practice, where we actually worked with an organization called the Alliance Healthcare Foundation. They're a $25 million a year funding agency that funds community health-based projects in San Diego. And they had actually come into some scrutiny in the larger community because a lot of their the supporters in the community were concerned that they were maybe picking the same organizations year after year to fund, and that they were not necessarily funding according to their values, and that there may be some unethical funding practices happening there. And so what we were able to do is use natural language processing machine learning models to create our own dictionary, and according to their primary values that they said that they funded against. And what was interesting about that is we were able to show that actually they were funding according to their values. We put in 633 applications into our natural language processing dictionary that we created from scratch for that organization, and classified the number of applications that were funded that had high frequencies of words that were related to their primary values of their organization. So this was a really innovative project. It was really interesting and fun. And we were able to show that, in fact, they were funding according to their values over time, which was great for the organization to have that kind of external perspective. Again, this is the outputs of our model. We're looking at comparing, the accepted applications versus those that were rejected according to their values over here on the right. Their values were things like engagement with the pink line, whether or not your organization is producing change in the community, innovation, how innovative is the program that you are looking to have funded, whether or not there's sustainability practices built into that project that you're looking to have funded, whether or not you're measuring your outcomes, and is it actually related to health in the community. And as you can see, if we compare those that were approved versus those that were rejected, across all values, there was at least a slight number of applications that were funded that were aligned with their values versus those that were not. We did run tests for statistical significance as well to make sure that the differences that we saw were actually statistically significant. And we did find that they were, which was great. I can stop now. if we want to move to questions, or actually I'll go through this final example. So I think we have 2 more minutes. So in this final example, at USC, we did a research study with 5 different organizations, school districts actually, across San Diego County. And again, we use natural language processing models to create our own dictionary to measure the degree to which these school districts were actually giving students opportunities to do critical thinking and apply the ideas around 21st century skills, which was mandated by a large grant that all these school districts were participating in. And again, we went through the process of creating our own custom dictionary for these organizations, and then funneled through different writing samples and work examples of students into that model. This was also, the results of this study were also published in the International Journal for Machine Learning. And we actually won an award for this study at that conference, in terms of, we won an award for being the most innovative study as it applied to data in the social sector, which was very fun to see. So some of our results here for this study just looked at the degree to which these 5 skills that were explored in these school districts were actually happening in these schools. And what we saw was that critical thinking was in fact happening the most, and we were able to provide an external evaluation of the success of these organizations and provide that back to the granting agency, which was both great for the organizations and great for the university to be able to apply some really innovative models around things that are typically hard to measure. A lot of the qualitative work in this space is not so easy to quantify given other tools. So this was great fun. So I think we are at the end now, and I wanted to maybe open things up to questions. I'm going to stop sharing and go back to my picture so you guys can see me. See if there are any questions that you might have.
Well, I have to say that was an amazing presentation, Andrea. Thank you so much for sharing. Again, I know that everyone was just psyched and super happy that you're here. We had, a lot of positive feedback and a lot of questions that are coming into the chat. So now I'd like to invite you to your very own DSGO Live Q&A. The way it works is that attendees will send questions through the chat. I'll receive them, and then I'll forward them on to you. So attendees, you know what to do. Send your questions through the chat. Andrea, are you ready?
I am ready. Are you not seeing me? That's funny. My video turned off. It looked like it was on for a second, and then it turned off. Let me try again. Oh. Okay, there. Okay, great.
Ooh, the magic. It appeared. Well, we have a question coming in from Kevin. Kevin asks, for visualization, in balancing visual appeal with value given the audience, how do you account for lowest time to comprehension?
Lowest time to comprehension in terms of visualization. So, I mean, I think anytime that you're visualizing your data output, you need to think through the simplest and most effective way to get your message across, right? And so, you know, it really depends on the models that you're building and the output that you are trying to communicate. But I think I'm always a fan of making it simple, and, you know, really great titles as well on your visualization, so that is guiding the community to what you are trying to communicate. One of my best practices in that space is to always title the title of your visualization the point, right? Like, so what is the point that you're trying to communicate? Make that be your title.
Okay. Awesome. Now, we have a question this time coming in from Sneha. The question is, compared with the skills required to create models, how important do you think communicating the results is?
I think it is almost more important, because your model, at least equally, if not more important than your ability to code and analyze your data, right? Because if you can't communicate that out to your audience, then the message of your output is lost and the message of your findings is lost. So definitely equally, if not more important.
Awesome. Now, another question coming in, this time from Victor. Victor asks, will there be a real demand for data scientists in the future?
100%. Actually, in our current time frame right now with COVID and the economic crisis that's related from that, data science is one of the only job areas that is actually still growing. And I run a consulting company where I help place students in organizations for data science roles. And we've seen a small slowdown, but people are still getting jobs, and it is in no way impacted in the same way as other fields. So that's good news.
That's great news for all our audience. Thank you so much. Now, another question, this time from Noah. Noah asks, do you worry about publishing results that might be viewed unfavorably by the public when using data science to look at social issues such as race, economic class, etc.?
Yes, I mean, I think you always need to be sensitive to how your results and findings can be interpreted from different organizations and different communities and different populations. I think that is incredibly important to think through the ethics of that and the implications of your findings. However, I think it's also important to maintain integrity of your research and to, report what you find. And, the results are not always things that everyone wants to hear, but that doesn't mean it's not valuable information so that we can start understanding areas where there's opportunity to grow and create social change.
Awesome, awesome, awesome. Well, I think that's all the time we have for the Q&A. Thank you once again for that wonderful experience, Andrea. Everyone was psyched, and I'm 100% that everyone enjoyed each second of it.